Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Amy, and today is the 1111 portal, and I felt called to do a reading. So this one was a little bit different. Spirit wanted me to kind of set this reading up as like a little bit of a container, like a little bit of a ritual beforehand. So, and they wanted me to do this like as part of the reading. So I always have a little ritual for before I meditate, but I don't usually do that on camera. I do all of that beforehand. But there's a message coming through here today that ties in with something I've mentioned a few times recently about taking our spiritual practices more seriously, and meaning doing them more consistently, but also kind of creating a kind of a sacred space and really honoring the process, because our gifts and abilities are getting ready to really open up in a big way is what I'm hearing. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into this reading here. So I've actually already pulled a few cards, and I don't usually do that either. I pull them on camera normally, but in this reading, I pulled a few cards to begin with, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But Spirit wants me to open up with just cleansing the space with some smoke. So I have some cedar and rosemary here that I'm going to use just to cleanse the space and welcome Spirit in to be with us for the next little while. And Spirit also wanted me to use a little sound. So I have a chime here. So just as a little advanced warning, if you have earbuds in or something, I'm going to do it very softly, but you might want to turn your volume down just a touch, just so you're not alarmed. And my cat thought he would chime in with a little noise too. If you hear that scratching, that's my cat at the door. So yeah, for this reading, so I felt called to kind of open up with those things, and Spirit was also kind of directing me to bring some things to my table that I don't normally bring. So one of those is my Lemurian crystal. So this is one of my favorites. I've had him for a long time. So I felt called to bring this crystal, and also my little crystal ball. This little guy is small but very powerful. I've seen many, many things in that little tiny crystal ball. So then I was called to pull some cards. And one of the cards I pulled, believe it or not, I promise you, this card fell out, was the Lemurian seed codes, which was a nice confirmation, because I was getting with this Lemurian crystal just the energy of Lemuria in some way. And this morning when I did my own personal meditation and card pull, I also pulled from a different deck a card that mentioned Lemuria and creating heaven on earth. It was from the Starseed Oracle, I believe. So there's definitely something here about the energy of Lemuria, and I think it's in connection with just the new earth energies, really tapping into what we want to create and sort of allowing ourselves to remember our lives in Lemuria. So I feel like this collective that I'm connecting with today has had some connections, some lifetimes to Lemuria. And something that Spirit was sharing with me the other day was that these things that we call our past lives we have to remember that time is just like a human construct, and lives are happening, all of our lives are happening simultaneously. And we need to remember that we are multidimensional. So we have access to all of our lives that our soul has ever lived in any incarnation, in any place in the universe. We have access to that at all times. And it's very, very powerful if we can call back our energy and our power and our soul parts that were like the highest expression that we were able to reach, the highest vibration, the highest ascension that we were able to reach in any lifetimes, we have access to now. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I haven't even shown the rest of the cards, but they really tie together nice for this message. So let me just share it with you. This is from the Divine Masters Oracle. So we have the Divine Director and Serapis Bey, trust the process and paradigm shift. So trust the process says create space for divine order to unfold. And with Serapis Bey, activation to grow, make the necessary change. And I really feel like this create space for divine order to fold is kind of the main message of this reading. Again, Spirit is asking us to make space for our spiritual practices, because if you're in this collective that I'm speaking to who've had these past lives in Lemuria and elsewhere, we are being called as light workers who have incarnated now in this lifetime to help the earth with her ascension from 3D to 5D, that we need to be able to access our multidimensionality, our psychic gifts, just more of our spiritual abilities. We were so caught up in the 3D world, and if you've awakened and you recognize yourself or identify yourself as a light worker, then we need to be accessing more of our soul gifts, more of our spiritual side. And, you know, it's a bit of a game, a little bit of a straddling the 3D and the 5D at the same time. It's not always easy. And so Lemurian seed codes, the card says embracing sensitivity, uniqueness, living with grace. And I think that touches on this aspect I'm talking about with straddling 3D and 5D. Like light workers who've incarnated at this particular time when we are just like on the cusp of the shift from 3D to 5D, we're in a really unique position, and different than light workers who've come before us and different than light workers who will come after us. We are in a really difficult place because we're still very much in the 3D world, yet 5D is here now. So that's something else, and I feel like that's a little bit of a different message and probably for another time, but it's good to mention here, and Spirit does want me to mention here, that the 5D is here now, because 5D is really just a shift. So this is touching on this Serapis Bey message of paradigm shift. So we need to wake up to the fact that the 5D is really just a shift in the way you view things, and seeing everything as happening exactly as it's meant to, seeing everything from the lens of love and compassion and kindness. And that is what is going to create the new earth. That is what is going to create the reality that we want to see. And, you know, if you're familiar with the law of attraction and universal laws, it's the thoughts that happened like before, you know, in the past, that are creating what we're seeing right now. And if we're seeing things that we don't wish to see, wish to experience, we need to change what we are placing our attention on and how we're showing up, the vibration we're showing up in. And that's going to create the reality that we see in the future. And that's just how it is in this particular plane of existence, is We experience it as time, as humans. And I kind of lost my train of thought right there. But we have to kind of play the game a little bit and understand that the shift from 3D to 5D isn't going to be, and this is just my understanding. I know there's different understandings and interpretations of how this is going to happen, but from my understanding, it's happening gradually over time, and it's not going to be something that is like all at once, like a rapture type event where there's just like this big boom and we're bam slammed into 5D. 5D is already here because we have collectively awakened to a certain level. It's now accelerating even faster. And also Mother Earth has gone through her own initiation of the ascension process. And she's already been in that for a while. And from my understanding, Mother Earth is in 5D now. And humanity is sort of kind of, we're catching up, and it's going to be a process, and it's going to be a time. And this card says, trust the process. But Lightworkers, we need to be really taking our role here seriously and kind of wake up a little bit to what's going on and seeing the bigger picture, not getting so caught up in all of the 3D stuff. And it's hard because we're really sensitive. And that's what, this card is talking about here, embracing our sensitivity, and giving ourselves grace. It even says on there, living with grace, that we're trying to navigate the 3D and we're seeing all the craziness in the world, and we're probably surrounded by a lot of people that are very caught up in what they see in front of them, and they keep telling the same story of this is terrible and the world is going to shit, and we have to kind of be with those people, especially if they're people who we're very close to in our lives, and not get wrapped up, not get caught up in that story, but not, cut those people out of our lives necessarily. So we have to learn how to navigate this paradigm. We have a different paradigm that we are operating in as light workers, and we're just being kind of reminded to remember that, keep that top of mind, and having a regular spiritual practice where we can kind of disengage a bit from the 3D world and really connect with our higher self and our spirit team, and really start to open our consciousness up more and more. Like, we have the ability to really expand our consciousness now. Like, this is what's available to light workers, and it's beautiful because it's not something that's really been possible for many people before now. Before, it was, people who would spend, hours and hours, like the spiritual gurus who, like, their whole life was just meditating, on a mountaintop or something. They had maybe access to this greater, wider consciousness. But us, like, kind of everyday people who incarnated here at this time to help bring about the new earth, we have the access to that same level of consciousness that we can just expand into. And with this card here, I pulled third eye activation, brow chakra, inner vision, clear seeing. This is speaking to this ability that we have to really kind of, go through this portal, and there's just like, on the other side of this opening. And that was something I heard in meditation yesterday, was the aperture is opening and widening. And it's funny, a vision that I had yesterday that's coming to mind again, so I think it's tying in with this message. It was a card that I pulled actually from another deck, Wisdom of the Oracle. You might be familiar with it. It's a pretty popular deck, and it's think I said here and now is the name on the words on the deck, on the card. But the image is like an egg with a doorway in it. And there's a little sign that says past and one that says future. And Spirit was showing me like this doorway that went this way. You know, so you have the past going this way, the future going this way, but there's this other way. And it's confirmation, this path that just extends out into infinity. And in the present moment, when you are in meditation and you are in your sacred space that Spirit is encouraging you to make sure you have set up for yourself, you can walk through this doorway, you know, like this doorway here, and really focus on expanding your conscious awareness so you can receive more information from everything we have access to. Your higher self, your lost soul parts, your other lives that are happening simultaneously with this one, right? We're multi-dimensional beings. We're multi-dimensional beings right now. No matter what your abilities are, no matter how developed your psychic skills are, you do have access to all of these wonderful spiritual aspects of yourself and your spirit team and ascended masters and galactic beings and angelic beings. And there's all of this available to help guide us. But we have to show up and do that for ourselves as light workers, carving out that time to open up to spirit and to our higher self and to develop our psychic abilities. And the more we show up, the more consistent we are with these practices, and really like just being serious about it, not for spirit. We're not showing up in this like setting up this little ritual and all of those things I did really for spirit, although there can be some of that, especially when you're working with ancestors. But the point that Spirit is trying to make is that we're doing it for ourselves, to say, hey, I see my role as a light worker seriously, and I know that I'm right now creating the new earth. It's not like we need to get to this new earth and we're waiting for someone to come in and make this thing happen, make this, great shift happen for us. It's available to us right now to start creating the new earth with what we're doing as humans right here, right now, in the 3D. So let me see if there's any other messages that want to come through. Yeah, just being gentle with yourself, not making it so, it becomes a burden as far as showing up in this sacred space that you create for yourself. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate or fancy. I literally have like this room right here that I'm in it's a tiny little spare bedroom that I turned into, it's my office, it's my craft room, it's jammed with all my stuff, my craft stuff, my spiritual stuff. And I just have a bookshelf in here that has all of my cards on it and my books, and I have an altar on top. And I literally just take a cushion and I sit on the floor in the same spot every single day. Even if I only have 5 minutes, I sit there every single day. And once I started doing that, my spiritual gifts really did start opening up. And it wasn't anything, really elaborate that I had to do, and it didn't take a lot of time. It's more about consistency. And my battery's getting ready to die. So maybe I'll just leave this message here before I get cut off. I hope this resonated with you out there. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I'd love to hear your thoughts if any of this resonated with you. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. I'll be bringing more videos out really soon. Thank you so much for being with me here today. Take care, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.